The Asura pirates are back! Unfortunately, I foresaw their arrival, and I put Raffin and Zeeg, and, Vega, that's the name, I put him in range too, so, they're all gonna die horribly. However, these thieves, you want to kill off the thieves, because they can grab the chests, and normally, if this worked like it did in many Fire Emblem games, I would recommend letting the thieves get the chests, and then killing them, to make the whole process of hunting down all the chests easier on yourself. But no, that's not how things work in this game. How things work in TearRing Saga is if a thief gets a chest, then that item is completely lost to you and you can never get it back. So that's very sad. Is this the... I think we saw hunters... 13 times 2 is... yeah, that's going to be enough. I think we saw hunters back with the bandits back in Taurus Village. I said back twice. We might have. But yeah, hunters are basically just like a bandit version of archers. In fact, I think back in FE1, hunters didn't even promote. I suddenly just thought of hunters' chemistry, but that's from a completely different game. So yeah, get rid of these thieves before they go for the chests. Otherwise, you will lose some interesting things. But we have some pirates, and yeah, they are the same class as Garrow. No weapon triangle means that I can probably just afford to attack you with whatever I want. -5 attack speed, so anything 0 or above will double you. So yeah, 3 houses weight system, I think it was kind of decent. When I saw that Armor Knight gives you those, like, weight minus skills, I was thinking, oh, cool, maybe that's an incentive for actually training people in that class, but no, I don't think most people don't even do that. Yeah, that's another thing, just Armor Knights are, they were good, finally, they were good in Fates. They were actually really good in Fates, and they're really good in Heroes, but then again, Heroes has smaller maps, so you can't really compare, but they were pretty good in Fates overall. In fact, Fates did... it's just kind of a shame that this is a whole nother tangent, but I think it is a shame that a lot of people just write off Fates as a horrible game and just like a game that people are just willing to forget and just move on, because I think Fates, gameplay-wise, did a lot right. It did a lot right. Conquest, I think, has some of the best character balancing of any Fire Emblem game. Like, the only things that I can really think of are, like, I think Camilla is too good, but other than that, it's just... I think it's got pretty good balance, the map design is amazing. So yeah, Conquest has some really great gameplay. I don't really like Conquest Chapter 25, but apart from that, I think it's got some really good gameplay. And even, like, people are quick to bag on Revelation, but I think Revelation is kind of decent in the fact that it just gives you an enormous number of characters to play around with in terms of, like, a sandbox-style experience. A lot of them, you know, start out with horrible base stats for their level and are just kind of terrible if you're just playing the chapters normally, but if you're concerned with, you know, fully, it's just a shame that, yeah, I don't know which chest to prioritize with Juni first. You know, I should probably have her go after that one first, because that's going to be infested with reinforcements later. Let's not do that again. But, I do think Revelation, like, I found Revelation decently fun. It's got a few annoying map gimmicks, but, like, if you just want to train everyone and grind them, it's a decently fun route, and it gives you access to the most supports out of the 3 paths. Birthright, I mean, it does have the advantage of maybe having the least horrible story of the 3, and that's not saying much at all. But at the same time, I just didn't particularly like Birthright that much. Like, it's just, its gameplay was that, in my opinion, was just sort of Awakening but worse, and though its story was the least bad of the 3, maybe, I still think, I don't know, like Conquest, it's people like to rag on Conquest, but at the same time, like, I actually kind of hold Conquest in higher regard than most of the other routes, because it at least tried to do something different, and it's got some aspects to it that I actually think, like, aren't that terrible. But also, it's just because I love Garen, ironically. I just think he's such a funny, so bad it's good character, and just a lot of the edge for me is taken off of Conquest just by how, just how fun it is to watch Garen being a giant ham. Like, I don't know how many, I don't think many other people feel that way, but I just, yeah, I have a very large, ironic liking for Garen, and that kind of takes a bit of the edge off of Conquest. But this just leads me even to like a third tangent. I was just thinking that, I was really hoping for a crit there, so that's good. That I saw like a poll, and okay, and admittedly this is taken from the Fire Emblem subreddit, which does have a bit of bias and can be a bit of an echo chamber sometimes. But it took a poll of like which Fire Emblem games you've played, which you've beaten, and which you say is your favorite. And then somebody calculated every game's like percentage of like how many people beat the game versus how many people said it was their favorites. And it was really interesting because Thracia ended up on top, even though there were fewer people who'd beaten it. There was about like 40% of the people who'd beaten it said it was their favorite. But again, I do feel like the Fire Emblem subreddit are kind of the sort of people who would like Thracia, so maybe it is a bit of an echo chamber issue there. But also, I guess I'll go for this one because I'll be heading back down there anyway. But also, the one other thing that surprised me was that Radiant Dawn was actually, I think, second place. Which just shows how much the fandom's opinion on Radiant Dawn has changed since it first came out, because it used to be the most controversial Fire Emblem game, by far. It and Sacred Stones, and both it and Sacred Stones are actually a lot more well-liked these days. Sacred Stones also rank pretty high on the percentages. And then, like, kind of not to the surprise of a lot of people, Awakening was about the middle, because it had the most people who'd beaten it by far, but also less people, only about, I think, 26% said it was their favourite, out of those who'd beaten it. But it did have the highest raw number of people who said it was their favourite, so it kind of looks like it might be most people's favourite, but at the same time, as a proportion of the people who'd actually played it, it was a bit less. But the main thing that I was getting to is that Birthright actually ranked lower than Revelation on that list. Birthright was near the bottom. I think only Fire Emblem 1 was behind it. I think I think there was one person who said Fire Emblem 1 was their favorite. But Birthright was really, really low, like lower than Revelation, and I personally agree with that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But one thing that also really surprised me about that survey was that Shadow Dragon was really low. It might have even been in the bottom 3, which again, like, surprised me because I don't think, like, Shadow Dragon isn't bad at all. I've actually reevaluated it in a better light. In fact, maybe it might even be my next Fire Emblem project after this game, because yeah, I'm totally counting this game, because it may not have a lot of story, and it has no supports, but what little story that it does have is very well written, and there are a lot of people who actually think that Shadow Dragon Marth, in particular, is written very well. And they actually don't like the original and, like, new Mystery of the Emblem versions of Marth. They think the Shadow Dragon version of him is, like, strikes a very good balance between idealism while also, and I guess, pragmatism. Like, and also not feeling stupid. Like, he is like an idealist and sort of like young and optimistic, but at the same time he also feels like a very practical person at the same time in that game. It's hard to describe, but I just do think Shadow Dragon has decent writing for what it is. I think it also has a really great localization, like one of, like, in my opinion, 8.4's best works. Because I'm not a particularly huge fan of how they handled Awakening, but they did do Echoes though. Actually, no, Echoes is definitely 8.4 did Echoes a lot better than Shadow Dragon. Shadow Dragon is still very good though. But Echoes might actually be one of my favorite Fire Emblem localizations. Well, one of my favorite localizations of all time, up there with Nier Automata, which I think was also 8.4. So, like, 8-4 is very hit and miss for me, personally. Because they actually, like, they're responsible for the whole Sumiya Pies thing, so, yeah. But yeah, like, overall, and especially with, again, like, the kind of community that is in the Fire Emblem subreddit, I was really surprised Shadow Dragon was that low. So yeah, the pirates just keep going down the coast and spawning more, well, pirates. I think we're getting pretty close to the end of these enemies, though. I do want to mention, though, the way that hunters and bandits look in TearRing Saga, they look really, like, they almost look like they aren't even human. They look kind of more like Cyclopses than actual people. I do kind of like how, the enemy phase theme plays whenever this boat moves. Just adds that feeling of, oh no, pirates! Oh no, the pirates are right next to the ship! I think they kind of already have, considering that Zeeg and Raffin and Vega have already taken down most of them. Renee, I think that is? But a girl with a unique portrait. She certainly won't be important later. Well, I guess we need to rescue her, but we don't even know she's in danger, because that was one of those cases of the player being shown a cutscene, but the characters are none the wiser. So, yeah, the actual people in universe don't know about her at all, but one day we'll settle the score with that guy. Yeah, this chest is definitely worth it. Ironically, Juni is better with that than she is with a regular sword, but good luck getting her the mastery to actually use that. So yeah, mastery 8, might 8, so that is a guaranteed 16 damage to most physical enemies if you're doubling, which is not bad, and if you have any magic at all, it's even better. Vega can't go that way. Yeah, I probably need to take down this guy in melee, just so he doesn't just try and shoot arrows. So yeah, going a little all over the place with those tangents. In fact, I think I can't even W, of course. I think once we've dealt with, because there are going to be some more reinforcements down in the forest, once we've dealt with those, which I think they keep spawning for 5 turns though, but once we've dealt with those guys, then we're going to, they're just basic thieves. Oh, right, Zeke doesn't have Kanto yet. Oh, and he has Frontiersman, though, so he has 8 move for this map, too. I want to kill that guy, but at the same time, I really, really want these thieves dead, because otherwise we're going to have problems with them going after the other chests. But yeah, so I started talking about weight systems, then I talked about 3 houses, then I talked about, that whole pole, and yeah. I mean, Fate's had an interesting weight system to bring things back to that. It kind of didn't really even have a weight system, it instead just assigned arbitrary speed penalties, not arbitrary, but it assigned just flat-out speed penalties to various different weapons. Yeah, I can't double that guy at all, no matter what I do, so I just have to bank on a crit here. Which was okay, but at the same time, there were also a lot of... I mean, I don't really like the way Fate's handled some of the weapon penalties, like weapons that debuff your stats every time. Oh. We just got his partially eaten fruit. That's... that's... and it must actually not come out of its own inventory, because it only has 1 use left. But yeah, partially eaten fruit from a pirate. I don't think that's a good idea to be eating. Don't try this at home, people. That is probably a surefire way to get horribly sick. Then I guess Enter can just go over here. We kind of have way too many healers on this map. And I specifically went out of my way to bring an extra one. Now that guy's just wasting time because he's just running around doing nothing. Oh, you have a hand axe. Of course you do. When I talked about the hand spear earlier, I think the javelin has always been called hand spear in Japanese Fire Emblem games, although, then again, maybe I said that before. 1 damage. Yeah, they mostly focus on the chests. However, I have Frontiersman Zeek here, so... And who was called, like, Z-E-E-K in an early fan translation. Which I think is actually the same name that Zeke from Gaiden is called. And then Echoes revealed that was actually short for Ezekiel, who is the name of a different character in this game. Yeah, it was Tatiana, which, again, I like. I'm glad they went for that over Tita, although there's a Tita in... Oh, and of course, Trails in the Sky. I was like, oh, I don't know what other thing there's a Tita in. Of course it's Trails in the Sky, what am I thinking? But, yeah. She was Tita in Japanese. But it's still better than Bird. That fan translation, like, I remember... I should probably save talking about that for another time. Oh yeah, Raffin's well and truly caught up with his levels by now. Oops, I actually wanted to move 1 space down with Kanto. Yeah, those stats are pretty impressive again, so that's good. Let's see if I can take this guy out then. Maybe I... Oh no, their defense is 4, so I do exactly enough, don't I? And I will with a crit. If the character names in the attack screen are being cut off, I will need to fix up my OBS setup, because I thought I had OBS recording, like, in the right kind of, like, layout, but I'm not sure. I'm actually still really inexperienced with OBS overall. I much prefer capture cards, because I'm actually not great with, like, variable technology, like computers, like things where you have to take into account different things. And aha! These reinforcements have finally decided to show up to the party. So yeah, this is probably considered a waste to a lot of people, but I like to have Xeno take these guys, because sometimes I've had Xeno get all the way up to like level 8 or something in this chapter alone. Oh, and on the subject of Gaiden, so, Xeno is his class's mercenary here. Well, actually... Oh, yeah, she's gonna have to get that chest, isn't she? So actually, this class in Japanese is called Fighter. And you might be wondering why that's significant, and it's significant because it's the same class as Ulm from Gaiden. The one that's on foot and uses swords. You might be wondering what, the class we call fighter is. Well, they've always been X-Fighters in Japanese. Oh, I just realized this might actually be a good time for another tangent. Not exactly a tangent, because it is discussing a gameplay mechanic that I did intentionally not talk about until now. Because I wanted to make sure that we'd, I had other things to talk about earlier. It's one of the game's, I guess, stranger mechanics overall, and it's one that doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. You gonna miss again? Okay, no. Well, with Paragon, you don't actually need to kill things to get good amounts of experience. So, this game actually keeps a tally of the types of enemies you've killed and what terrain you've killed enemies on. You can see this in the character's status screens if we go over to here. So, like, as you can see, unit kills. She's killed 1 horseback unit, 2 foot soldiers, 2 armored units, and 0 of these, 8 monsters, and 1 clerical unit. Also, kills with different types of weapons as well. And here are the kills in different types of terrain. And it has those percentage pluses for, like, hit and avoid. So, here's how this works, because, like, if you look at this, Raquel starts with 20 forest kills, 52 bow kills, and 20 monster kills. For every 10 kills you get plus 1% to your hit and avoid against that type of enemy. And for terrain, you get plus 1 to hit and avoid on that type of terrain, and for weapons, it's when you're using that kind of weapon. So, like, somebody like, I think, oh, Naren's not here, I'd otherwise show Naren's kill screens, but, like, as you can see here, Raffen has, oh, he has 10 bandit kills. I guess everyone who was taking part in Chapter 2 has a lot of bandit kills. And 20 kills with Lancers, that's +2 to hit and avoid. It's, like, the bonuses are never going to be particularly huge, but it's an interesting system overall. And it kind of just shows that, like, it does make sense that you get more experience at fighting certain types of enemies or fighting on certain types of terrain based on, like, how often you do it. It's basically like, you know, reminds me a little bit of the preferred enemy rule in Warhammer 40k. I was hoping you go for some reason the zombies really like attacking Xeno, even though they're not very good against him at all. But it means more experience, at least. May have to give him a new sword, though. Most people say Xeno's outclassed by Swordmasters, but I still like him. So we're in position to seize, but we can't do that for a while. And speaking of a while... So, Juni moves at 1 tile per turn in swamps. 1, 2, 3, 4... And then she'll spend like 4 turns getting out of the swamp. Yeah, you can see why this chapter annoys me in a lot of regards. Like, some people might be wondering why I even really like this game, considering how I've ranted about a lot of the maps being not that great. But overall, I really like just the overall gameplay. It's got a lot of characters that I enjoy using. The story is pretty decent for what it is. Just like, again, overall mechanics, it's solid. I do really like this game, even though it has a few maps that are a little annoying. And they are annoying in ways that Fire Emblem never was. Like, I don't think there's been a Fire Emblem map that I found as tedious as this to get all the chests in, especially with those small... I guess maybe in Gaiden. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. This game does take a lot of influence from Gaiden, and, yeah, Kaga certainly liked Gaiden quite a lot, I think, and... I'm gonna offend a lot of people by saying this, but I'm not sure if he was exactly right to. Like, I think Sacred Stones was the perfect evolution on Gaiden. It took the best parts of Gaiden, but it also avoided the worst aspects of Gaiden. Whereas this game definitely has, it doesn't have a lot of, like, the more annoying parts of Gaiden's gameplay. The map design's a little more interesting in this game, and also there's more enemy variety, the formulas aren't as wacky, terrain isn't as crazy, magic doesn't cost HP to cast. Yeah, there's a lot of, like, this game definitely has, like, a lot of good features and stuff, but in terms of, like, taking certain Gaiden features, like Gaiden Swamps, I don't know why Gaiden Swamps needed to come back. Just like why Pokemon X and Y shouldn't have brought back Diamond and Pearl Swamps! Why did they do that? I am really hoping that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl change things and have the swamps work differently, because the swamps were awful and are like swamps and snow were one of the reasons why Diamond and Pearl are still my least favorite main series Pokemon games. Even though a lot of people go, oh, duh, it's objectively wrong that you didn't say Sword and Shield are the worst Pokemon games, because they're an abomination in video game form. Yeah. I can see why people are annoyed by certain decisions in Sword and Shield, but honestly, I suffered severe reverse hype backlash when I played Sword and Shield. I've got a whole thought on video for that, but when I first played Sword and Shield, I was just like, wow, like, I am actually enjoying this. Like, the fact that I went into it with such low expectations meant that I couldn't be anything but pleasantly surprised. And there's the original Diamond and Pearl. I would say what I feel about them, but at the same time, I agree with everything in Tamahiro's review. Like, she has pretty much, apart from the part where she criticizes the Pokemon designs, which I think Gen 4's Pokemon are my favorite batch of new Pokemon in the whole series. And while Diamond and Pearl are my least favorite main series Pokemon games, at the same time, they are my favorite Pokemon games for multiplayer. Like, by a long shot. I think they have the best competitive of any generation by far, and they're the point where competitive really hit its stride, but they are my least favourite in terms of the single-player adventure. But Platinum did fix a lot, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver were amazing. So, although, like, lately there have been a lot of people who don't like Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Like I know that Chugga Conroy doesn't like them, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, people have different opinions. Like, at the same time, Chugga and Mariland both very vocally dislike Aurus, and I really like Aurus, but part of the reason for that is that I really did not like X and Y. I think they're probably still my second least favorite main series games. And honestly, I think most of the... I can't believe this. This is a totally not Fire Emblem game, and right now I'm talking about Pokemon. But, like, we're fighting just zombies, like, and getting chests. There's not a lot to talk about here, so at this point, consider this episode to be a podcast. There might be another chapter, Chapter 16, where I get to do this, because Chapter 16 is also an insanely long and tedious map. Like, don't worry, this game does, like, there are a lot of good maps in this game. I don't hate all the maps. There are a few maps that are, well, frankly, quite bad. But what strategy RPG doesn't have its fair share of bad maps? Some just have more bad maps than others. But this one, I think, actually has a lot of, overall, I think my experience with this game is positive. But what I was saying, was that this is probably a bit of a hot take, but I personally think a lot of the problems that people have with Sword and Shield originated in X and Y. It's the approach, and this is why I like using Xeno, by the way. His growths are just kind of crazy, even though his class is not as good as Swordmaster. And he also learns great skills. But, it was the approach that Game Freak shifted to starting with Generation 6, where they started to focus less on new Pokemon and more on the multiplayer than single player. They started to think that most people didn't care about the main story and just wanted to speed through the main game to get to training Pokemon and battling. So they made the main campaign a lot lighter on story, they made it a lot shorter and more linear, they made it a lot easier, they added things like the experience share. Funny thing is, I still maintain that X and Y, if you don't use the experience share, they are actually very difficult games. Some of the most difficult games in the series, because the opposing trainers are actually decently smart in terms of their movesets and items and things like that. Sasha doesn't really gain a lot of stats by leveling up, but she levels up so much that she does tend to snowball above the rest of the army. But back to what I was talking about when it comes to Pokemon. Yeah, back to not talking about this game. I don't know. Some of you, I think some of you here know what to expect from me at this point. You probably like this, but yeah, I guess I've been wanting to get this off my chest for quite a while. But like, I think you kind of see the idea. So the approach that, and also the massive increase in Gen 1 of pandering, like the major focus on if you take a percentage of like the Pokemon that are in the decks. The Kanto Pokemon greatly outnumber every other generation, including Gen 6. There is like a decent variety of Pokemon that are available, but I much prefer the approach to Platinum and Black and White 2, where the Pokedex is exactly half new Pokemon and half a roughly even split between every previous generation. Now, when you've got a lot of previous generations, that's really hard to do, but I still think those are my two favourite regional Pokedexes in the series. Platinum and also Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and Black and White 2. Again, X and Y were the point where Pokemon really started to shift its approach. And it was kind of because, like, that's the thing with Black and White. Black and White has a bit of a, I'll talk about what that shield is later, has a bit of an interesting reception in, like, the fandom because, like, it's got, like, the people who love it tend to really, really love it, and the people who hate it tend to really, really hate it. It's kind of a bit polarizing. I feel like these days there's more love than hate, but it's probably because Sword and Shield came out, and now Black and White have attracted the label of the last good Pokemon game to many people. But I personally think that they were the point where Game Freak realized, okay, we're getting stale, we need to innovate. But they innovated without sacrificing the core gameplay that a lot of people love in Pokemon. And then, the thing is that, technically speaking, Black and White did fail in terms of sales. They didn't quite have the same impact that was really hoped, and because of that, Game Freak, well, this is just my speculation, but I think because of that, Game Freak radically shifted their approach with X and Y, and started focusing a lot less on story, focusing a lot more on multiplayer and competitive, including a lot of old Pokemon, and downplaying the new ones, and focusing on very, very heavy nostalgia and Gen 1 pandering. And, like, at the time, I guess people, like, there were a few people who were mad at that, but at the same time, like, people didn't know that approach was going to stay, I guess. And so, I don't know, there was a bit less of an uproar about that. And then Sun and Moon actually did try and do a few things differently, and tried to focus a bit more story, and had some pretty good character arcs as well, and some great, like, I still think that, like, yeah, Lucidbeam was an amazing villain, and I hate that Sun and Moon, I hate that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon turned her into secretly a misunderstood good guy. Because why? Just, she was great. She was, like, one of my favorite villains, and not just in Pokemon, in, like, any game. Ghetsis is also amazing as well. But yeah, it's her and Ghetsis are my favorite Pokemon villains. But yeah, so Sun and Moon did try and innovate a little bit, and had the trials and things. And they also had other reasons for people to complain about, namely they changed it, now it sucks angle. Meanwhile, you know, we've got a heartfelt moment between these two, and I'm talking about Pokemon. But Sun and Moon did carry on a lot of the same issues of lack of a post-game, and focus on Gen 1 Pokemon, because only Gen 1 Pokemon got Alolan forms. And they also had no national Pokedex descriptions, so, like, evidence of, you know, the precursor to the Dex cart was already there in those games. Well, I think okay, now the reinforcements have stopped showing up, I'll just, I'll cut to Juni getting the rest of the chest. I'll just finish this topic first. Like, basically what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of like the TV trope franchise original sin. I think that pretty much all of the problems that people have with Sword and Shield started with X and Y, and they just kept growing and growing until the fan base eventually just exploded. Okay, next chest. Elixir, this is important. You need one of these for the Latina event. And the Thunder Shield is, it's thankfully one of the only unbreakable shields in the game, but it raises your magic defense by 12 against specifically Thunder Magic. That's going to be useful a little bit later on, so I want to keep that for now. And finally, Nightcrest. I'll give that to the convoy, yeah. That is the last one. And in fact, for now, I'm actually going to go ahead and trade that elixir on to Christ, because he actually needs that for the Latina events. And I'm going to stall this out one more turn, because I want to get Xeno's conversation with Runan. Okay, so you've met him before. Map's basically over. There's no enemies left. Speaking of which, yeah, that line bottomed out kind of quickly, and it stayed bottomed out for ages because it's turned 26 now. Like, of the treasures that you really should pick up, it's mostly the Levin Sword. And the Iron Shield, but that's like the closest to Juni to begin with. So, let's seize with Runan, or visit, because technically Holmes already sees this place. That is oddly sinister music. Okay, so she wasn't in the swamp to begin with, that's good. Well, actually only one zombie and it took you two turns. Well, that's a weird birthday. Your birthday present is turning into a giant dragon. Though in this case, out of self-preservation and not out of hoarding and greed. $15. It's usually 16. I feel like in a lot of fantasy media, the 16th birthday is always the one when magical powers awakening. I believe they're called that in Japanese too, which would mean that it's the same class as Deirdre and Julia. But I don't want it. Why would you know that? Yeah, like being a giant dragon who is invincible. I mean, it sounds kind of cool. Like, and it's not like she can't control it or anything. Interesting. So, yeah, it seems like who controls the dragon is whoever wears that bracelet. And yeah, just like Fire Emblem, dragons are in danger of being stuck in that form permanently and going mad. The thing is that I'm pretty sure most of you watching this should have put 2 and 2 together by now. Seeing that Enter is, you know, a blue-haired shaman, the same class as Katri, and Gwen Chaos is after her, and she's associated with one of the temples, the Temple of Water, whereas Katri is associated with the Temple of Fire. There's probably a very good reason why Enter knows this information. Sorry to interrupt this touching moment. But you see, I must point out that the descendants of Yutono who can turn into dragons are called Emu in this game, because they didn't want to get sued, since Manakete is trademarked by Intelligent Systems. That's actually true. Well, specifically the Japanese equivalent of the name Manakete, Mumkut, that's trademarked by Intelligent Systems. Originally, yes, Katri was going to be referred to as a Manakete, but they couldn't do that, obviously, so Kaga just called it a different name, and it was totally fine. Just like he did with the game itself. So, yeah, Holmes has his own personal agenda. He wants to hunt ancient treasure. He really doesn't care about the war at this point. Though you know these kinds of stories, he's inevitably going to get dragged into it eventually. But, you know, having a treasure hunting buddy is always kind of good, because he'll be able to send some pretty useful, possibly ancient weapons for our war effort. Oh yeah, of course you're doing this for a bit of compensation. Holmes is definitely a jerk with a heart of gold, though. At least to the people that he actually cares about.